I just feel like that makes it more authentic. I feel like anytime I can bring in a fictional way an experience that I had or a moment that I was feeling during my time at the CIA, especially when I was operational in the Middle East and waiting for sources and meeting with terrorists and all that, like what it felt like in my body and what it felt like in
Yeah.
my mind and everything. I tried really hard to kind of put myself back in that place, put that out there in my novels because, yeah, I mean, that's the whole goal, right? Is to make the reader feel like they're totally immersed in the world you're creating.
Hello and welcome to the Thriller Pitch Podcast, the director's cut of the thriller book world, where we talk to best-selling, award-winning, and emerging thriller authors about the craft, research, and real-world experiences that power today's most gripping stories. I'm your host, Mark Nadeau, and joining me today is former CIA target officer Brittany Butler, author of the espionage thriller, The Patriot's Daughter. Brittany, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on, Mark. I appreciate it.
And thank you for the book. I have a copy of your book here.
Oh, great.
Showing that to the
Wonderful.
camera for people. Thank you. I'll add it to my shelf very soon of all my guest books out there.
Wonderful.
So let's get right into the pitch. Pitch me the book, The Patriot's Daughter.
Yeah, so The Patriot's Daughter is a geopolitical espionage thriller with the emotional intensity of a love story you can't walk away from. At its core, it follows this character named Ava Anderson, a CIA targeting officer who is sent to infiltrate Russia's intelligence service after a wave of cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns begin destabilizing the United States. But what starts as a mission quickly becomes personal when she realizes the operation is tied to her mother's disappearance, someone she was told to forget. At the same time, she's paired with this counterintelligence officer named Ben, who doesn't trust her and has reason not to. Their relationship is built on suspicion, control, and connection neither of them can afford, but also they can't ignore it. The story sits at the intersection of national security and emotional vulnerability. It's about what happens when trust becomes a liability and love becomes leverage. It's basically for readers who love high emotional stakes, thrillers like Daniel Silva, Brad Thor, but also want the emotional depth of something that like Kristen Hanna would write in The Nightingale, or something even darker, a darker romance that's just without the fantasy. Everything in this world could happen tomorrow, which I think is what makes the book really exciting.
Yes, and scary.
Yeah, definitely. And
Thank
what's so
you.
funny about this book is that I wrote it at a time where like none of this was really happening yet in our like just kind of in terms of the political environment with the kind of the federal government and the state government kind of being at odds. And that was something I like fictionalized in the book. And so it was on accident that it's so timely. So yeah, I think that's really interesting to write a book and then it kind of happened a couple of years later. Interesting and scary kind of. But
Yeah.
as a CIA officer, I mean, part of my job was to predict what's going to happen in the future. So maybe that just kind of came into play there.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So let's talk about, I want to talk about the dedication first for a second, because you have a beautiful dedication. I'm curious to see how that fits into the the book and then you personally, because it feels like it could be a lot of both. I'm just going to read it here. The
Yeah.
dedication of this book says, to the girls who were told they couldn't but did anyway, and to my sons who remind me every day why courage matters. I mean, I love that, and I'm
Thanks.
curious how that fits into the book.
Yeah, so it's a personal book. I've never written something this personal. My first book, The Syndicate Spy, was, at a time when like I had just lost my dad, and so I was grappling with that void in my life, and so a lot of it kind of was around this woman who loses her father. This book was all about what happens when this woman Ava loses her mother, and she lost her at a really critical time in her life when, she's a young girl and she's what a lot of young people go through in terms of like they're grappling with a sense of identity. Who am I? Where do I come from? What am I going to become? And her mom leaves on this mission for the CIA. She goes to Moscow and she's gone for several months, and Ava just never hears from her again. And I wanted to write about just like the inner workings of a young woman and kind of what we are up against, especially in the world of espionage. I spent 10 years at the CIA, and before I joined the CIA, I was told by those closest to me that I would never survive in that world, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't tough enough. And so
Wow.
I was kind of just always told, like, you're not good enough. And so to go and do that kind of work and be successful at it is something that, I'm really proud of. But then I also want to talk about it with, young girls. That dedication is for the young women who are told, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough to do this kind of work, when in reality, the women that I worked with in espionage were some of the strongest women, smartest women I've ever known. And they had to work twice as hard a lot of times because, in my case, especially working in counterterrorism, we worked in the Middle East primarily, and we weren't seen as equals in that culture, especially with Islamic extremists. And so not only were we trying to build trust and rapport with our sources and in some instances detainees to obtain information on behalf of the US government, but we were also working against these ideas that women are not equal to men. And so we had to work even, doubly as hard. And so, that took a lot of courage. And
Yeah.
that courage is something that I'm hoping one day, that inspires other young women thinking about a career in intelligence. But then also, of course, my sons, I hope that they realize and appreciate how hard women have to work, in order to become successful in that industry. It's fairly difficult. So, yeah, so that's kind of behind the dedication. Thanks for asking that.
I love that. Did you know that this was going to be a theme going in? Like when you started this writing, were you thinking, I want to tell this story about my
Yeah.
life and how, you know, this moment impacted me and what I had to work to get to here?
Yeah, no, it did not start off like that. So Crooked Lane, my publisher, they actually contacted me to write this book for them, and they wanted to make it a modern day homeland type of book. And so they were very concentrated on the geopolitical side of it. Your typical espionage novel that it's got all these geopolitical themes and you're racing against the clock to save the world kind of a thing, which I love. I love that kind of backdrop. I think that's really exciting. And I love writing in that space because, of course, I've experienced that life. But I also wanted to touch on some of the deeper issues of, an intelligence officer's world and what you're up against in terms of some moral dilemmas in espionage, right? You're working alongside these men and women that are risking their lives in order to provide you with information that could save US citizens. And so that comes with its own moral dilemmas, moral questions. And I'm not sure I think it's being talked about more, like just the toll that takes on the men and women that are doing that type of work. But I think that it especially it can be a really great background for a novel, right? Like
Yeah.
exploring those deeper issues of espionage work, what it really takes to do that kind of work, and how you have to really compartmentalize almost like your humanity in order to do that job really well. And it's really difficult, right? So like you're meeting with these men and women and you're saying, I will protect you. I will give you the tools and tradecraft that you need in order to not get caught in spying on behalf of the United States. But ultimately, there's a lot of times where we can't do anything to save them. If they get caught doing that, the threshold is very, very high for the US
Wow.
government to say, we'll come in and we'll, basically rescue you from this awful situation. So that can weigh on a person, right? Like
Hmm.
you go to sleep at night thinking, oh my gosh, did I do everything I needed to do today in order to tell my source, how to navigate the dangers of espionage? And am I teaching them enough in order to protect themselves? That's your responsibility as the case officer. That's your responsibility as a targeting officer, is to make sure that those individuals that are risking so much are protected. And so, yeah, so that really was something that I wanted to explore more deeply. But then also my own story kind of crept in to Ava's story about, these feelings of abandonment, about her mother kind of leaving and what that created within her. And then just this overall sense that she wants to be part of a family. Like she was an orphan in the sense that her dad was not a part of her life early on. He was kind of a mystery to her always, and then her mother leaves. And, what that does to a young person who's searching for who they are and their sense of belonging. And so I love that I was able to kind of weave in that very personal story with something that's exciting and flashy and whatever with the geopolitical background. And then I also feel like it made the love stories so much more believable, and that you have these really flawed characters navigating this world, and I think it makes them as people more believable. Like, I think they did a great job with the last James Bond, where Daniel Craig, you kind of get more into his psyche of like why he becomes the way he is with women, right? It's because I forget, Ava Green, I forget what her name was in the movie Casino Royale, but you watch her kind of take down his walls, and she betrays him, and that affects him for the rest of the James Bond movies, and how he treats women and how he navigates relationships. And so I thought that was a really beautiful job, and how they created depth to a character that I think in prior depictions of James Bond, he's just like kind of one dimensional, a little bit more flat. And so with my characters and the Patriot's daughter, Ava and Ben, I wanted to make sure that they had this backstory that was really well developed, that you're like, okay, this is a real person. I can really get inside this person's mind on this mission, because they're flawed and they have these traumas that they've been through in their personal life. And so I can relate to this. Yeah. And I pulled from people that I worked with at the CIA, and experiences that I had of people who, were in some really bad situations and had to make some really tough calls, and they were traumatized by that, and that affected their relationships with those closest to them.
How do you build, or how do you decide when to be authentic with an experience and when to fictionalize? Because you have pacing to consider, and then you have your real life experience to consider.
Yeah. So I think an editor always is helpful with that. So my editor kept me very honest on the places where I wanted to go deeper with some character, maybe some of the romance, maybe some of the, what she was going through personally. And she kept me honest about, okay, we got to keep going. We got to keep going with the plot. We got to keep going down there. And so that was really good to like have that check-in and have that accountability there. I think for me, it is relatively easy. So I would say it's one of my strengths as a writer, that I'm able to keep up the pace. Like I mean, you tell me, you read it, so I need to get your thoughts on this, but I don't feel like it was slow at any point, maybe initially. And I think in all stories, you have to build up, kind of the world, and you have to establish the characters and everything. And that takes some time before you can like really push yourself into the action. And so maybe, that might be something that I feel like other thriller authors can relate to, is that balance between, okay, I need to establish the setting, the world, and who these characters are, but then I also need to make that inciting incident come earlier and earlier. Let's, start moving with the plot. So yeah, and then as far as like my personal experiences, I just feel like that makes it more authentic. I feel like anytime I can bring in a fictional way an experience that I had, or a moment that I was feeling, during my time at the CIA, especially when I was operational in the Middle East and, waiting for sources and meeting with terrorists and all that, like those feelings and what it felt like in my body and what it felt like in my mind and everything. I tried really hard to kind of put myself back in that place and put that out there in my novels, because I mean, that's the whole goal, right? Is to make the reader feel like they're totally immersed in the world you're creating.
Yeah, you wrote very viscerally, and I was wondering if that's what it's like being an agent. Is it really like you have a lot of like tight chest kind of moments written in various ways, and the heart pumping, and this raw emotion? Is that like real to what it's like to be a target officer? Or I mean, is it okay?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you are numb to a lot of it as you go through it. Like, it's something that's so normalized at the CIA. So, like, for example, like there was a time where I would just pop over to Iraq for like a weekend and like help with
Wow.
something. So like, and my husband, it was my boyfriend at the time. I was like, so we had like planes, we called it the air bridge at the CIA, but unmarked planes that flew out of Dulles Airport that we would take to Baghdad or Kabul for a period of time. And we would just pop on that plane and we would just go over and then we would come back. Like it wasn't a big deal. And I told my boyfriend at the time, I was like, oh, okay, so I need to drop you off at the airport. I just have to go for this quick work trip. And he knew I was in intelligence, but I don't think
Okay.
he really knew like to the extent or whatever, and or that I was in operations at this point. And we pull up to the Dulles International Airport and in the front, and I'm like, no, actually, you need to go like around back. And he was like, what? And so we
Wow.
like go kind of like around back, and there's like these warehouses and these big white unmarked planes, and it's dark, and there's just like a bunch of guys and girls just like headed into this airplane on a tarmac, and there's no ID check or anything. We had like passports, but they weren't real, and like we're just headed into this plane, and he's like, this is really not normal. You know this, right? Like this is like really crazy. And I was like, no, it's like no big deal. Now, if you think something happened to me and if you think I died or something, like just like said it really casually, this is my agency identification number. So we have something called an AIN at the CIA,
Okay.
and that's how you would identify me. Like you would call into, and I gave him a phone number. I'm like, you call this number, give them my AIN, and they'll tell you what my status is. And I think that was like really weird for him to
Yeah.
but it was like very normal. Like I was like, oh yeah, like so and so came back from Afghanistan, so and so, blah, blah, blah. So you're like, it's very, there's not that heart pounding moment all the time because it's so normalized. But now looking back on that kind of work, I'm like, I cannot believe that I just like popped over there and like they just like gave me a machine gun and then like
Yeah.
I'm like in the middle of the
Wow.
desert. Like it's just like so crazy. It to me it looks like a fictional world at this
Yeah.
point, like because it seems so far removed from my life now. But at the time, it was just like kind of part of what you did. For me, it wasn't so much as like going into the war zones. It was more like the missions I went on when I was like deep undercover and the US government did not have control over that country. So like in Iraq and Afghanistan, it like wasn't so big of a deal that like I was there because we controlled the country essentially, right? But like when I was going into other Middle Eastern countries that we didn't control, and there wasn't all the like the guards in place, and because whenever we would move around to meetings in the war zones, we had GRS, which is like our security details that would go with us everywhere, and like we had bulletproof vests and everything. So I felt pretty secure, and then I was carrying too, right? In the middle and the other countries, I didn't have all those different layers of protection. I had to just kind of like be really aware of like my surroundings, and I was usually working with a foreign intelligence service, and I'm trusting them that they would have my back because they were the ones carrying weapons and we weren't. So I think those were the really heart pounding moments that I was trying to really make sure that my characters felt. But also, like, Russia is this whole other different space that I actually never worked in. And so I had to do a little bit of research there and talk to people about what that operational environment is like because it is so different from counterterrorism and the Middle East and the areas that I worked. But, a lot of the same, well, I mean, it's the same way that we recruit and run spies in Russia as we do in the Middle East. It's much more difficult in Russia. I will say that. But yeah.
So, having left the CIA, do you ever get scared anymore or nervous about anything? Or does it feel like, I always wonder, because you've experienced such big stakes and things, now that you come back, and I wonder if you just kind of brush off the little things because you're like, yeah, in the world, this is just nothing.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think I look at things maybe with like a little bit more of a critical eye. And for whatever reason, I'm able to. So, like, one of the things I do right now is I provide commentary about the war in Iran on the national news. And I'm able to talk about it like just very calmly, and because that's like just such a familiar world to me. I'm just so used
Yeah.
to using the names, and I have such a familiarity with that area of the world and that culture and understanding Islam and everything that I can speak to those things. And it's not that big of a, like, it's just something I'm so used to. And then, but like, as far as sweating the small stuff, just like anybody else, I'm a parent, right? So I get really worried for my kids, but not necessarily me. I'm like, I'm fine. Like I'll be fine with anything, but it's really my kids that I'm more sensitive about. And then also that kind of played into why I left the CIA, because I worked in Afghanistan. I supported Kandahar base for a period of time. And I had some really close friends die in a suicide attack in Afghanistan. And one of them had a little girl who was 3 years old, and that really stayed with me, that experience of knowing him and knowing that what kind of like father he was and how he was trying to juggle everything. But then it really brought home the severity of the work, the risk involved in the work. And once I started having children, I was like, I gotta get out of this. This is not something that I can sustain. So I left after I had my second son. I have 3 sons, and that ended up being the right decision for me. But I totally respect and the people that are able to keep up with the work. I just couldn't. It was just too much on my family and me emotionally and psychologically, having done the counterterrorism mission in the war zones for 10 years. So it was time for me to get out. But yeah, and then also like I think too, yeah, I'm not as scared, I don't think, because I can protect myself pretty well. So that helps.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, I have a lot of respect for you choosing to actually leave the CAA. I think that's another balance thing that can be
Mm-hmm.
that can be very challenging, that people often choose work
Yeah,
over family. So that's
sure,
good for you.
sure. Yeah.
Do you feel like Ava, how much of Ava feels like a reflection of you? She's a very strong character. She goes out there and gets after it, kind of, so to speak. Is that, how much of her do you feel like when you wrote her is like you?
Yeah, I think a lot of her is like me. I think that like those feelings that I was talking about before, her sense of wanting to feel a part of like a big family, to
Mhm.
belong. That's something that I've always struggled with personally, like wanting to create that. I didn't have that kind of growing up. And so I really wanted to create that within my own immediate family and like really have a strong foundation and stuff for my kids to grow up in and everything. So like that very much is me. As far as her experience in trying to navigate love within espionage, I definitely had some experiences where I had a lot of the same questions she did about, is this going to detract me from the mission? I mean, they make you feel like at the CIA, like you really are saving the world. Like if you don't show up to work, the whole world's going to end. So like you feel like this
Wow.
immediacy and this importance that is really cool, right? You feel like what you're doing is like super important.
Yeah.
But then it also makes you want to choose the work over everything else. And then also like if you happen to have feelings for someone that you work with, that can sometimes be something that you have to really, that you're struggling with. Like Ava struggles with her feelings for Ben because she knows it's going to detract her from the mission. And likewise, Ben, as the counterintelligence official, like his job naturally is to go against, not go against, but question what Ava's doing constantly. So Ava's the operational officer, right? So she's meant to drive the mission forward. She's there to get a job done. But then Ben, the CI guy, counterintelligence guy, he's there to make sure she doesn't get caught, right?
Yeah.
And so he's constantly like, are you sure you should be doing this? Are you sure you should be trusting this guy? Let's take a step back. Let's look at the mission more objectively. And that happens. That happens at the CIA, where you've got, like, I had operations that well, almost every operation had to be signed off by counterintelligence, CIA. And I had a really good working relationship with this guy. I mean, nothing romantic or anything, but like we were just friends. And he would call out stuff and be like, "Well, have you thought about this? Do you make sure that this blah 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 blah?" And
Mhm.
so, that happens. And I thought that would be a really cool conflict to write about, that relationship kind of deal between an operational officer and a CI officer, and how they can how they're naturally just kind of at odds, and how that can create this kind of like enemies to lovers trope where, they're having to navigate, some really important issues like the peace within the United States
Yeah.
alongside their own personal feelings of, hey, do we really want to see what's here?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How did you balance writing all this? Because you essentially have like three major plots. You have the romance plot, you have the family plot, and you have save the world, or save the United States, I guess, in this
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
plot.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that as you're writing it to try and be like, oh, I need to make sure I touch on this, and I need to make sure my reader didn't lose track of that, and I need to make sure that all these little things. That's a lot. It seems like a lot you got going on.
It was a lot. You have to tell me if it like really like resonated, if it did okay. So yeah, the three different like plots. So for me, there were easier things to write than others. I kind of made sure during the editorial process to go back through and connect some dots. If, you know, it was easier for me to kind of step away after I'd written the entire book and then go back through it and say, okay, like I need to probably flush out more of this, this part of the plot, or I need to like dive deeper with the characters and their backstory in order to make the romance plot make sense. But I feel like that you can do all of them. I've read books that they do a great job of having a romance element, having adventure, having action. I don't necessarily think stories need to fit in one shelf
Yeah.
in order to be good or in order for people to be able to follow it. I think that thriller readers are actually like pretty smart bunch,
Yeah.
and I think that they're good at following those type of plots. My goal with this book was to respect the reader, respect that they could follow everything, and for it to be more like real life, which is real life. In real life, you have romance, you have the action, you have the family stuff all occurring at the same time. And I think that makes it a more well-rounded experience for the reader to be able to touch on those different things. Because if you're just like this very flat, one-dimensional James Bond going to this facility and killing this guy and blah, 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 and killing this guy and whatever and saving the world, like it's just like, I don't know. I don't think it's as interesting as if you get in that guy's psyche and you're like, okay, his backstory, what happened to him in the war, how does that affect and influence how he navigates espionage? Let's get in this guy's mind and his psyche. I think that makes a more compelling story.
Absolutely. The characters definitely bring them to life. And I've read both. I've read a lot of thrillers where it's just action, 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 and they're fine. But I also, because I write psychological, which is also very character driven, I
Yeah.
loved that whole character side. Constantine was actually one of my favorite characters, and he's
Okay.
very interesting in that he loves his country.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very dangerous guy at some point, an assassin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He sort of betrays his own country for his because he believes in what I guess what Russia should be or what he knew it to be, and now it's not that anymore. Is that something that happens in real life as well when you're trying to turn someone, so to speak, against their own country, where you're like, no, no, this isn't the country you believed in. You're a patriot by doing these things for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll make the comparison to what's going on in Iran right now, right? Like a lot of the people who are in Iran right now, they disagree with the government, the Iranian regime, and but they believe in their country, right? They believe in what it means to be a Persian, and their sense of identity is something very different from the government. And I think that happens a lot of times, in espionage, where the people in power, like the people that are living there and that are navigating everyday life, they don't agree with who is in power currently. And so because of that, it's relative, not, I won't say easy to turn them, but they're already there, right? Ideologically, they're already there. They already want to see a change, and they're looking for someone to help them do that, right? So that is largely what it is to recruit a spy, is to
Okay.
to make that connection. And then also because they have to, it's not, a lot of it is driven by money, right? Like 90% probably, I would say, is driven by money. They just they want more money, and that's why they work for us. But then there's also this ideological component. You have to have that. You have to have a motivational factor there, because otherwise they are going to be turned by the highest bidder, right? If they're just there for the money and they don't really care about what they're working toward, it's not going to work out. So that's where the Ava developing the rapport with Constantine in this book comes in. Her questions about, hey, but do you see that, like, you could be part of the solution here?
Yeah.
You see what's happening in this country, you disagree with it. I know you're a patriot, and what being a patriot actually means is doing something to better your country. And right now, the opposite is happening. And so that's a conversation that, I'm sure like 90% of case officers have had with their sources is, let's work together. We have a common goal here. And that's how espionage happens. And so that's what I wanted you to see in the book, how it really plays out in the real world. And that was Ava and Constantine.
So when people put down this book and they've read the whole story, what are you hoping that they're going to feel, or what kind of emotional reaction they're going to have as they close those final pages?
Yeah, I feel like that wounds don't have to define us, that the wounds that Ava endures at the beginning of the book, they don't have to be something that defines her life. It's okay that she wants answers. It's okay that she wants to dive deeper on what happened to her mom, but that doesn't mean that that's who she is. She's not defined by who her mother was. And I think so often us as humans, sometimes we fall into the trap of feeling like we're defined by our circumstances or defined by our wounds. And I want my readers to come away thinking, yeah, this person had these experiences. Like, you can have these awful experiences of abandonment and losing your family, gaining your family, whatever, but it's really Ava who ends up saving herself. It's not Constantine, it's not Ben, it's her. And it's these wounds, it's these what she goes through early on in life that makes her stronger and makes her able to save herself. It gives her the strength to do that.
I love that. What was writing this book like? If we take a step back now, you mentioned that your publisher kind of came to you with an idea and you took that idea and sort of ran with it.
Yeah.
How did it come about from there? Like, from the do you create notes and create characters first, or did you create Ava first, or or if the plot, I guess, was sort of given to you, however that worked out?
Yeah, so it was really up to me to write the outline and the character. I mean, everything. They just had to like kind of approve a lot of it. And they just kind of gave feedback, about, oh, did you think about this? Did you think about maybe doing this? So it was great. It was great to have that, especially as a writer. Sometimes you're operating in this like very lonely space of you're bouncing ideas off yourself, and it's not a good thing. You need somebody to bounce ideas off of. So it was like having a great friend that, I could bounce off things and like say, oh, does this make sense? Or what are your ideas for this? So that was a really fun experience with my editor. But what I do before I write a novel, and actually this is the third one I've written, my second one didn't get published, but I write the GMCs for each character, goals, motivations, and conflicts for each character. And I build that out. And then once I have those defined, then I go in and I start sketching out the outline of like what I want, how they're going to achieve what they're working towards, right? So the motivator is like that driving kind of force for everything that they do. And so I know once I've hit my midpoint and once I've reached the end because of what they have achieved, right? And then like also like the conflict is what's driving the plot constantly. So that's how I kind of begin. And then I'll also, at the beginning stages, I'll just write out scenes that like ideas for scenes. Like, hey, this would be really cool if they're like in Riyadh and like they're having a meeting there. And because that happens too. We have a lot of third country meetings because it's too dangerous to have the meeting inside Russia. So I like really wanted to write this third country meeting. And so I found a way to like integrate that into the plot. And so, yeah, sometimes I like going to sleep at night, of course, is like always the time I have the most ideas. And so I'll just get my phone out and I'll like write in my notes section blah, 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 and then I'll
Yeah.
incorporate that the next day. So yeah, the GMC's outlines, and then Crooked Lane was really good. It took me a fraction of the time to write this novel because they forced me to write chapter outlines.
Okay.
And while very painful,
Yeah.
once I started writing, I was like off to the races. And it was really relatively easy to write the story. But I found like my first try at it, I did not outline my first book. I did not, I was like, I think I called it a pantser.
Yeah.
I kind of like went for it. And what about you? Are you a pantser or a plotter?
I'm in between. So
Okay.
I'll have a good idea of the story before,
Yeah.
and then I kind of run with that. Like I have the outline, and then I run with the outline.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting, and I think it's okay. Like if one book, your process is different for, different books.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes it comes more easily, and I've definitely done the thing where like I'm having a really hard time. I had a hard time with like my second book, I think towards the end, and I had to gotta go back and outline once I'd written the end to make sure that everything made sense.
Yeah.
So whatever works for you.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think there's one right or wrong way.
So when you're outlining chapters, is it playing like a movie? Do you feel like it's a movie script? I get that sometimes where you feel like you're
Yeah.
just kind of writing a movie essentially.
Yeah, and I listen, I have to be listening to like movie soundtracks. So like
Okay.
instrumental, no words in the music, but I have to have my earbuds in, and I have to be like totally immersed like in the sounds and whatever of what I'm, writing. And I feel like I'm writing a movie and it's playing in my head.
Do you change your music based on the scene that you're writing? One thing I've done is like have rain playing in the background when I'm writing like a scene and it's raining, or if there's
Oh,
gunfire, you like play gunfire in the background. So as
oh,
a
I love
writer, you never stop thinking that, oh yeah, this is going on in the background, because it's easy to lose yourself and get right into the action, or the character
yes.
starts talking to their head. But when it's playing like gunfire in your background, you're like, yeah, I don't know if this person's going to stop and think about this with all this
Right.
racket in the background.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I'll be so engaged in what I'm writing. Like sometimes I'll just forget to change out the music, but if I'm having trouble with like a particular scene, I'll like switch it up. I'll be like, "All right, time to switch up the music. This ain't working. Let's move to something else."
How long did it take you to write The Patriot's Daughter? Do you
Not
write like every day? Like what's your
Yeah, well,
process?
so I am really not doing well right now. I have a lot of personal things going on, so I'm not writing currently. I hate it. I love to write, but usually I'm writing every single day, and
Okay.
especially when I'm on a novel. Right now, I did write the outline for the next book in this series, and it's with Crooked Lane now. So we'll see what they think.
Oh,
Um,
is this Ava? Is it an Ava
this is
series?
Ava, yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah, yeah. It's
All
a it's
right.
a homeland. They want it to be a whole homeland series. So we'll see where her
Okay.
mission takes her next. But yeah, I'm really wanting to get into that. But there's also this part of me that's like, okay, well, if they don't like the outline, I don't want to start too much into that book
Yeah.
and down that if they have a totally different vision,
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful place to be at that I don't have to think about going out in submission. I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm sure you've been out in submission. It's horrible. So I would love to just like have a publisher write the book, make sure it's going to get into the hands of my readers. Like
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
But then I also want to write what I want to write. So there's there's balance.
Yeah. Yeah. A delicate balance.
Hmm.
So as we kind of wrap up a little bit, what advice would you give someone who just published their first or second book?
Mm. Just continue to write and be true to yourself, in that I feel like you can get pulled in all sorts of directions with what's popular right now, or
Yeah.
what, I know romantasy is like this big thing right now. And I love romantasy. Like I love reading it. I think it's so great. But I don't know if it's my strength. So I'm not going to like start writing a romantasy. So stick with what you're good at. Like no matter what the trends are saying or what people say you should write, just write what you're passionate about. Write the story that you want to read. That's, I think, universal. I think you'll hear that from a lot of different
Yeah.
authors is write the story you want to read, and continue to build your platform with your voice. that's something I have tried really hard to stay consistent on, is building that platform. Because, and right now that looks like social media, that looks like Substack, which can feel like a lot, but it's unfortunate, but it's kind of what publishers are expecting these days. If publishing is like something that is really important to you, I would say try to make that a priority, even if it's just like 10 minutes out of your day that you just like put your favorite reads out on social media, or talk about a recent book launch that you went to and that was really interesting. You loved the talk. Doing those little things every single day, it's going to really pay off whenever it comes to publishing your next book or promoting your next book, because you'll have an audience that's already in place, and publishers want that nowadays. So they kind of require it,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you could pick one thing that led to your success, then what would you say it has been so far?
I think, I hate to repeat myself, but it's like just staying true to what my background is. And as much as, so when I got off of, at the end of the day, out of my job at the CIA, the first thing I wanted to do was like turn on like Friends or Seinfeld or something completely different from what I did for a living.
Yeah.
And now I'm at a place in my life where diving back into the world of espionage is that different place from my normal everyday life. Okay. So the fact that I have been able to do that is, I know, is a privilege to be able to have that time to write and to dedicate to something that I love. And I think staying true to what you're passionate about is what it's all about, right? Like, and be happy within the process. I think we're all kind of racing, like, can't wait till I'm a bestseller. Can't, only when I'm a bestseller will I be happy, will I be fulfilled, or whenever I sell 1 million copies, or whatever that might be. But it's really the journey, right? It's the sitting down with your imaginary world and being able to lose yourself in a story and have people like connect with that story, even if it's like 5 people, like for them to read your writing and connect with that. I think holding on to that is essential. And in terms of feeling like a success is enjoying the journey. Yeah. It's not, I don't think, becoming the bestseller. That's great if you can be that, because we all need to make money. We all need to live.
Yeah.
But it's the journey. It's the process itself that is the gift.
Yeah. If you're in it for the money, I think you will not be in it for very long. This is just it's too hard.
It's way too hard.
Way
too
easier
hard.
ways.
And like, it's so funny because before I was a published author, I totally thought that everybody was a millionaire that wrote a book. And now I know that everybody writing a book is poor.
Yeah.
You don't make anything. If anything, it takes money from you.
Yeah, it does a lot too.
Yeah.
Question from our last guest on the show, and you'll get to ask a question for the next guest. This is Michael Lalonde. He wrote The Canadian Front, which is a Canadian military thriller with our Joint Task Force Special Operations soldiers here in Canada. And he asks, you may or may not be able to answer this, but how do you get into a country like Russia to be a spy when there is so much surveillance and video? Like, where do you begin?
I can't really say.
Okay.
I mean, I know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I know how we've done it before, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to like mess up anyone's operation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or go to jail.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a great question, and I wish I could answer it, but I don't know how to answer it and not reveal something I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and that's why. Yeah, I led.
Sorry
with
about that.
Oh no, not at all. We joked about it, but he thought he wanted to try, see what happens.
I love it. You gotta ask. You gotta ask. Get a shot. Yeah.
So, where can listeners find your book and hear more about what's coming next and everything you have going on?
Yeah, so The Patriot's Daughter is available anywhere the books are sold. You can go on Amazon right now and pre-order it. It's going to be out on April 21st, but I highly encourage you to pre-order. You can pre-order the Audible version, paperback, or hardcover. For updates on where I'm going to be going on my book tour, I'm really excited. Go to BrittanyCButler.com, or you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Brittany Butler Books. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. So we're going to head into our spoiler section. For those who have not read the book, go buy the book, read the book, and then you can come back and finish the last few minutes of the episode here as we jump into the spoiler section.
Great.
So first question, did you know near the end of the book, they're in the control room and there's a guy wearing a mask, pulls the mask off. It's Nathaniel Gray. When you first wrote this,
Yeah.
did you write like the guy with the mask? And then when he revealed himself, you were just as surprised as everybody else? Or did you know it was going to be him?
I knew I wanted Nathaniel Gray to literally be this morally gray character that someone can almost relate to. Like you get it. You're like, okay, he wants freedom of speech. He feels like, the fact that the government is trying to regulate what's on social media is a crime. And this is like he comes from a good place, right? Like he's trying to do something that is good, freedom of speech and everything, but he doesn't realize like that he's playing into the Russia's hands.
Yeah.
So his vulnerabilities are being weaponized against him. So I knew I wanted that to happen because I wanted people to see how easy it can be to turn someone, to fall into the dark side, to let your own ambitions kind of take over what is right and what is good. And so I knew I wanted to make him bad. That particular scene I had not orchestrated already, that he was going to like be the guy with the ski mask and the one that had recruited everybody at that facility to betray the United States. Like I didn't get that far in my line of thinking until like we got back to the United States and I was trying to work out, okay, Nathaniel Gray, like how's he working over here and how's he the bad guy? And I needed that kind of like person between the bad guys in Russia and the bad guys in the United States. I needed, okay, what's going to bridge that? Who's the intermediary there? And naturally Nathaniel Gray fit that bill.
Yeah. He has almost like a wealthy everyman feel vibe for sure. Like I could see a lot of tech billionaires or playing that exact role if they haven't.
Yes. Yes.
How did you decide who would get revenge on, and I might butcher his name, Abramovich? Because they all had their reason to kill him. And in that scene, I'm like, ooh, who's going to be the one to plunge the dagger into his heart? Because I feel like everybody should. They all need a turn, to having that guy.
Yeah. So it's funny, like my mom, she really wanted me to write a character that was her. And my mom's name is Teresa. And of course, that's Ava's mom's name. And I wanted to create this love story that you really feel for Constantine and Teresa and the life that was stripped away from them.
Yeah.
And I wanted that moment to be about Ava, of course, getting revenge on Abramovich, but then also more so about Constantine because he took the love of his life away and their daughter, a chance of being a father to his daughter early on in her life. So I feel like he was the right person to that final blow. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that scene because I just wanted everyone to finish that guy off.
I know, right? Just kill him. Yeah.
There's also a moment near the end of the book where Constantine says, if a moment comes, you have to choose between family or mission, choose wisely or you might lose both. That was really powerful too.
Yeah.
Was there a meaning to that, adding that line? It feels like there was personal meaning to that line.
Yeah.
It just read so personal.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I talked about a little bit earlier in the podcast with losing my friend, his name is out in the public, Darren Levante, died in the suicide attack on Coast Base in Afghanistan. And him and I had a conversation about a month before he died. We were working together in Amman, Jordan. And he and I were working together on operation. He was a brilliant case officer and basically turned this one guy around where it was a very successful case, but it was very hard to do. And he was really masterful in how he did it. And him and I were meeting afterwards, after this one op, And I was like, dude, like, you've got to teach me like how you do what you do. Like, you are so good at this. I respect your work so much. And he was like, don't be impressed by me. I am not a good father. I'm not a good husband. I have given my life over to this job. Don't think highly of me. And that was like a really weird answer for me. I was used to case officers being like, well, I'm the most badass ever and let me teach you, you know. But he was like really humble and was like, this is nothing compared to what really matters. And I don't think I really those words resonated with me enough until I had my first son. And I looked at him and I was like, nothing else matters. Like, the biggest impact I can have is on my sons and who they become. And I remember I was talking with like a very senior, he was a former chief of station, really senior CIA guy, right before I went on maternity leave with my second. I was working Afghanistan. And I was really fighting with like, I mean, I was so sick then. I was so like run down and tired and pregnant and all the things. And I was like, I just don't know if I can come back. I don't know if I can come back. I'm so exhausted. I don't have the energy for my first son. I don't know how I'm going to navigate two sons. And he was like, Brittany, listen, there's always going to be a bad guy. There's always going to be a bad guy pop up and people are going to need to go chase him, whatever. The biggest impact you can have is on your sons. You could kill one bad guy, a new one pops up, an even worse guy than the last one. So do what's significant to you. You're going to have the largest impact on your little world. And yeah, that resonated with me too. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And there are wonderful people that work at the CIA, and I hate it that we get such a bad rap all the time. I feel like half of people think we like kill JFK and like we're doing all these
Yeah.
bad things. I don't know.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not saying like we're all good and we've always done the right thing, but there's so many like loyal patriots that care so much about the United States and they give up so much to protect our country. And you know, and it's wonderful what they do and what they sacrifice. But I'm totally fine and comfortable with the younger generation taking the helm and taking, I'm tired. And I think there's a reason why there's a high turnover in that line of work because it does take a lot out of you. And I think once you reach a certain age, you're just like, I've got things I need to focus on and I can't continue with this life. And in my line of work, especially, you had to sign up to do overseas deployments in order to get promoted. And I'm not willing to be away from my kids. So that kind of made the decision for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thanks. Good.
So what part hit you the hardest writing this? Is there something in this book where like it just hit harder? I know you mentioned family, so that wanting family that Ava goes through. What hit hardest?
Yeah, I feel like her learning about the truth about her mom. And like, I think part of the story, I wanted to almost like bring her mom back. I wanted her mom to like be resurrected. I wanted her story to come out, what really happened to her. But I thought it would be too easy to just be like, oh yeah, she's alive and she's well in Russia and they had this hug and, you know, whatever. I didn't feel like it was as realistic as, you know, what happened in the book of her kind of, I can't remember what word am I thinking of? She's been redeemed, right? Her mom has been redeemed, and that she is not the Russian spy that you may or may not have thought she was throughout the whole story, and that she really was the Patriot, and Ava is the Patriot's daughter, right? Yeah. So I wanted to tell like a story that you felt like could be a possibility, and that was a little bit devastating in a way. Because a lot of times these stories don't end well, right? And so, but then there can be something beautiful out of it, right? Like meeting who her father really is, you know, and for me personally, like I connected a lot with the relationship between Ava and Constantine, her father. So I lost my dad, right? And so I kind of modeled Constantine a lot off of my father. And so getting back to having that father-daughter relationship between Ava and Constantine was really fun. And it was like bittersweet too. So it was a harder scenes to write, but also like really beautiful because I could revisit that relationship.
So, final question. What's one question you'd like me to ask the next guest who comes on the show? And the next guest is John Lindstrom, who wrote Hollywood Payback.
Oh, okay. Do we know what the book's about? Like,
It's a noir thriller about a guy who basically gets out of prison and ends up in this like murder conspiracy, I guess would be the easiest way to sum it up.
okay. I always like this question. Who do you see playing, if your book gets made into a movie, who do you see playing the main characters? Like what
Oh,
famous people?
good question, because he's an actor and a director of movies, so
Oh, awesome. That's
so
super
he
interesting.
actually
I'll have to
probably
tune
has a
in for
great
that.
question for that. He probably
That's
has a great
great.
answer for that. Yeah,
Great. I
he may
love
know
it.
exactly who's going to be in his movies.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so
If
cool. I love the movies. That's so cool.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate you reading the book and having me on, and it's been a great experience.
So if you don't mind sticking around for just a few more minutes for
Sure.
the rapid fire after show, we will get into the after show.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Brittany Butler, The Patriot's Daughter. Go read it. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.